It's week number 8 here for Stage 2 of the Quake Pro League, which means there ain't many of these weeklies left, Flea. My name is Ketchup and I'm joined on the desk by Flea. We have some fantastic games to get through today, and with the sort of, I guess, late nature of the weeklies that we're on right now, these matches are starting to ramp up and they mean a great deal.
Oh yeah, I mean, this is definitely one of the most important weeks that we've had so far, both at the top end of the leaderboards as well as towards the bottom, because as we all know, the bottom 2 players in each region are up for relegation in the end, so these matches really do matter a ton, because a lot of players are really close to each other in terms of points.
So let's take a look at the updated leaderboard for today's action. We can kind of go over the matches and the schedule in due time. As you can see here, Rafa comfortably sitting there at a fat number 1, so many points ahead, undefeated really. In the Americas. Looks like right now no one's really going to be stopping him, and we'll see what happens at the Stage 2 finals with that one. But for the rest of it, we can look at the schedule a little bit later and talk about how these really start to ramp up and matter. You have players more on the lower end that I think we have to pay attention to as we go into the later stages of these weekly broadcasts. It's all about players trying to stay out of that bottom 2 for their respective regions. You know, 2 from Americas, 2 from EU/CIS will be on the chopping block for the relegation matches for our challenger players who have been competing on most Saturdays, winning, and we'll find out who's going to be there for Stage 2 to potentially dethrone them. But players like Genic, Waz, you know, Effortless, they are going to be a little bit concerned, and their results from here on out are like, you know, it's do or die at this point.
And I mean, the same can be said for the European and CIS side of the leaderboard as well. If you look at Xron towards the bottom of EU, there's only a 6-point gap between him and Av3k as well as CNZ, the two of which are tied for the second to bottom spot. And then you've got Cypher and Tox really not all that far ahead of these guys as well. And knowing that there's still a fair few points to be earned this week as well as the next 2 weekends to come, things can really still change up drastically.
Absolutely, and I'm really looking to go into the schedule after this too, because what's also, I think, combining the fact that you have these players that are very close to each other on the leaderboards, now we're getting into the later stages of Pro League, they're having to go head to head, which sometimes can really be, I think, a best case scenario that, look, we're sort of like, you know, neck and neck on a leaderboard, now you and I have to go, you know, one-on-one. If I 3-0 you or vice versa, I'm getting points and you're getting nothing. So it's an ability, really, I think, to ascend past and then at the same time make sure that your competition's getting a big fat 0. We should have the schedule ready, actually, so we can find out the matches. And as you can see, I don't think there's a single match this week that doesn't have some kind of real significance at this point. There are some matches that come up that you look at and you go, okay, it's going to be a fun watch, but, you know, it will be a match that exists and we'll move on for, like, the big prize matches. I don't think that really applies this week at all. Xron versus Av3k, highly important because they're so close on the leaderboard. Effortless and Dewey. Effortless needs to try and get himself some kind of solid victory here. Dewey, can he maintain his level of, you know, nice consistency in the Americas? Genic versus Chain, the Canadian showdown. Genic desperately needs a 3-0 this week. Cypher and CNZ, they're neck and neck on the leaderboards. Both crazy talented players, and it expects to be a very, very fun match to watch.
Yeah, like you said, not a single game that is unimportant today. Heading into the second side of the schedule for the matches later today, we've also got a lot of good ones coming up. We've got Nosfa versus the Hang. They will start things off. Now we've got Toxic versus Base, Kilson versus Razy, and Cygib versus Rafa, and a lot of important ones there as well, because Cygib is another top American player. Rafa so far undefeated in Stage 2. A lot of people have been wondering, is there anyone else other than the Hang who can put a dent in that Rafa defense? We might find out today. Kilson versus Razy, also 2 players who've been doing really well this stage. Toxics versus Base, but then Nosfa and the Hang will be the first one later today.
Yeah, taking a look at some of those champion picks that we can see in the graphics there. There are some kind of notable bits. Tox not using one of the crouch sliders today, which is going to be a little bit different. You know, we don't always get to see him use his patented movement technique, but we get to see Kilson with the Nyx, Razy with the clutch. I mean, that's actually going to be quite an explosive matchup, I think.
Oh, yeah.
And Rafa with the keel coming out. You don't really get to see that every day either, least of all on Corrupted Keep.
Nope, and the Scale Bearer from Cygib, that's gonna be a treat to watch as well. I see some more Strogs and Anarchies, quite a few of them today as well, so I think we're gonna be facing some pretty fast fast-paced matches today.
Yeah, and just to mention the bye week, there are always going to be players missing on a weekly basis. This time it's going to be Waz, Dramis, Wenger, and Cooler. They have their week off to study the rest of the competition, get a little bit of rest up, and we will not be seeing them today.
No. They will have some time to study, get themselves prepared for the final few games, because quite a few of those dramas definitely not safe just yet, so maybe they can take this week to really, ground themselves, figure out a strategy for the matches next 2 weeks.
Yeah, Waz is definitely one of the players of that list that is a little bit more concerned, I think. Dramas has been, quite kind of on the rise in some ways. I've said this before, and I say it again, that I think the Dramas at the very beginning of Quake Pro League is not even remotely the same Dramas that we can see now. You know, that kind of intense grind that Dramas has been on, I think it's starting to kind of, pay its dividends quite nicely. But we can talk about that in droves. Right now, we have our first matchup, Av3k versus Xron. We'll talk about Av3k first because recently, he got a fantastic result versus Cypher. I know that Av3k is always kind of seen to be a little bit of a favorite against Cypher. It's always a player that Cypher would have been quite worried about, and Av3k kind of reminding him why that is the case a couple of weeks ago. But he is not safe. He needs to try and place as highly as he can. I know sometimes that's easier said than done on this side of the globe with the absolute insanity that contains some of these players here for EU and CIS. Yeah. But at the end of the day, a good result here will just make him more comfortable, and that's all there is to it.
Yeah, because as you said, Av3k definitely not safe. He's only managed to win one game in the second stage so far, and that was going up against Cypher, as you mentioned, who, of course, is one of the best players in the world, but he lost to Cooler last week. So Av3k, he's got a few things to prove, and we're hoping that he can get back into the shape that he was in that DreamHack Winter last time, where he essentially made it to the grand finals up against Rafa.
I feel like so many players in Quake Champions, there's always a story of trying to return to form. And Av3k's kind of just in that list, right, where he's so well known for being a legendary status Quake player, has been kind of inconsistent once Pro League has begun, and, never say never. We still have some of these weeklies left and this series to get through. On the subject of Xron, normally we'd cut to a player intro and show you some highlights. This time round, we have a player interview ready. So, take it away, folks.
Welcome everybody to Quake Pro League, where today I am sat down with Xron. So this week you're playing against Av3k. How are you preparing for this matchup, and what do you feel like you need to look out for in his playstyle?
Hi everyone. Well, first of all, I need to win. I badly need points in the league, so I just started to practice more than usual, and Av3k is a very good and aggressive player, so I just need to focus on my own game and punish him for his mistakes.
Yeah, you kind of pointed it out there, but you are unfortunately in the relegation zone. What are you doing in these next three crucial matches to kind of change up your playstyle at all, or manage to take those crucial wins?
Well, I just started to play game more than usual and trying to get my best shape possible. So on Katowice LAN, I'll be in the best possible shape. That's like my goal.
In terms of your practice, do you tend to practice against other EU QPL players, or do you mainly focus on practicing against CIS players?
I now gonna practice like with whoever I can. But usually I just practice versus like people, like Talks, for example. I usually practice versus him. I just have like few specific players with who I practice, with who I never have like any problems talking and getting along with. Or just playing pubs, like public games, shooting around and getting comfortable with the game.
How have you found regular competitive weekly games compared to infrequent LAN events? And do you think the QPL provides something new and fresh to the community?
I think it's a good in the way that you always need to keep playing to keep the shape, and every game is important. But in the end, it's like always that everyone is waiting for the LAN to show their best, because in the end only LAN matters, so everyone is focusing on that.
Do you feel that you play any different on LAN versus online, and is your preparation kind of different for either?
Yeah, I think on LAN it's always more fun, because it's like everyone in the same conditions. There is no like internet, there is no ping issues, like everyone in the same conditions, and it's always cool to play on stage and so on. It's like another test for people. And I personally love it, and I think I'm always like hyped for LANs and waiting for them.
Well, best of luck for this weekend's games, and thank you very much for taking the time to speak to me.
So, on the back of that, and a couple of things that Xron kind of reflected on, I know you've had some kind of private chats with Xron and some conversations. It's definitely no, I think, mystery that he's not been grinding recently as much as maybe he should have, as you know, from a pure Quake perspective. And I suppose some of the weak results are kind of somewhat reflecting that. But now we know that Xron is back on a more, I suppose, intense grind. All we're really about to see is whether that's going to pay off. If he can get a fantastic result today, now we know he's been grinding the game a lot more. It would be kind of nice to see that direct kind of experience behind practice put into the very next weekly. It would be quite nice to see, I think.
Oh yeah, and I think that's something that's going to be more common among other players as well. The closer we get to the LAN, the more players are really interested in stepping up their game, and they're going to practice and really grind it out, probably try and get a larger pool of opponents to practice against as well. Sean mentioned it himself, he tends to play the same people usually, those that he knows personally and gets along with, but leading up to a LAN, it's usually important to also broaden the pool of people you play against, and I really hope that he can manage that and show him some of those skills today.
So, we have the vetoes to go through while we get the lobby up and running. Should be ready soon till we get into the game as quick as possible. But in the meantime, let's talk about what was picked and what was removed. Ruins of Sarnath, Blood Run, and the Vale of Nath. Death Knight coming through again. The Galena. Every time I see Xron on Galena, I just get excited. I think it's a smart man's champion. And Xron is one of the smarter players in the business, so it's always a match made in heaven. Av3k with direct answer to that with the Visor, Ranger versus Nyx on the Blood Run, and then Vale of Nath, BJ versus Death Knight. That's just going to be an exchange of pure damage on that final map.
Yeah, Death Knight also a bit of a so-and-so pick, On some maps he really can work, but he's very situational, and looking back at his track record in the Quake Pro League, he really hasn't seen that much success, but Vale is probably one of his best maps in the pool to play that champion on. Looking around at some of the other picks, pretty interesting stuff going on. We've also got the BJ. Vale of Nath works really well with that champion. The dual wield coming out strong on those small, windy corridors. And then Ruins of Sarnath. I think something extremely important for Av3k will be to take down the totems. We have seen this so many times. Players that can hide their totems well and get the 3 of them out on the playing field, they just become an unstoppable force.
There's just so many layers to the totems, especially on those larger maps where your position's not always going to be 100% well known. On some of the smaller maps, you can kind of listen out and you can kind of be a little bit more aware of where people are, so it's not so much of a question mark. But on a large map like Ruins, there are those situations where you see a totem and maybe, it's going to take a bit too long for me to go out of my way to get it because I've just got to get this pickup that's just about to spawn. Sometimes it's, I know the totem's there, but I'm confident he doesn't know where I am, so I don't want to give myself away. It's the gift that keeps on giving if you're a calculated Galena player, but yeah, how many times have we seen it, Flea? The totems get left and the stack just becomes insane in seconds.
And sometimes it's just very difficult to even spot the totem, right? Because it's easier for us being in the spectator mode. It stands out. Yeah, it stands out a whole lot. But when you're a player in game, especially when the totem's been used, the light it emits is really quite dim and it blends in with the environment quite nicely. So if you manage to place it in like a blood pool or somewhere kind of obscure in a corner, you can really count on your opponent, sometimes just walking right by without even seeing it.
Well, Av3k with the Visor pick means he's going to at least have somewhat of an answer to that, where if he's looking around, the piercing sight on a large map like this works out so well, just for not only just to set up those really cheeky shots and those potential traps, of which you can lay on Ruins of Sarnath, especially near some of the more vital pickups, but just information. The more information you have, the better. Blood Run, a little bit traditional, the Nyx coming out there, an element of safety there from Xron, thanks to the Ghost Walk. Ranger, we've kind of seen him do so many wonderful things on Blood Run. Just the navigation, the mobility, the kind of just burst damage potential that you can get thanks to the Orb. And then, Vale being potentially a bit of a slobber knocker, right? Just 2 champions that hit hard and hit fast. Always happy to see more Death Knight. I know he's not a crazy popular champion, but when you see him on these situational picks, it's always a treat to see a champion that you just don't see every day.
Yeah. Also interesting to see Eisenband here. Xron clearly fearing that after he picked Galena, Av3k probably or potentially could have gone for one of the deployable champions himself that can drop down the turret to block your exit and the teleporter and do a lot of surprise damage. So very calculated bans right there.
But just to remind everyone watching, just the magnitude of what rides on this series, we are in week number 8. There's only a few more of these weeklies left before the points are decided and we move into the Stage 2 finals, where the all-important relegation matches will begin pretty much that entire weekend's activity if it follows through with the way Stage 1 worked. Both of these players are potentially within that relegation zone, and they just so happen to be going head-to-head. So you know definitely that both of these players, they are gunning for as much of a 3-0 as they can get, because it's not just about trying to get the max points for yourself. You have a direct opportunity now to keep your absolute competition where they are on the board. You know, you get 3-0'd, you get 0. Zilch, no points whatsoever. So
yeah, and that could be the decider. With this few series left before the next LAN, if you go out without a single point in the matchup against what might just be your biggest rival, that could be disastrous. And also, like we already mentioned, both of these players only have gotten 1 win so far in Stage 2, so they're really towards the bottom of the scoreboard, fighting for their survival.
And then you look at the players. You know, we could say 1 win, and it sounds a bit underwhelming, really. But then you look at Av3k. What was his 1 win? Cypher.
Yeah.
So no, he was able to secure a win, but it just so happened to be against one of the most talented players that we have. So it's always kind of funny in the Quake Pro League when you talk about a player not having a lot of results. You always have to remember that this is Pro League, right? This is the collection of the best that exists, period. So if Av3k has what it takes to take out a player like Cypher, you would always just assume, hey, look, if he can beat Cypher, perhaps he can beat Xron. Because Xron's not looking as hot as Cypher is right now. There's a lot of potential there where if Av3k's playing as well as he did against Cypher, maybe this could be a 3-0, but as Xron said himself in the interview, he's grinding the game a lot more intensely now than he used to, so perhaps it's going to be a different player.
Absolutely, and the same can also be said about Xron, because the one player he's managed to beat so far was none other than Razy himself, and Razy made it to the grand finals of the Stage 1 LAN, so that says quite a bit. But on that note, ladies and gentlemen, we're jumping into our first map of the day. It's Ruins of Sarnath, Xron versus Av3k.
Xron's going to get the spawn near Heavy. Not a horrendous spawn with the railgun out there. However, he needs a little bit more ammunition and more weapons, so he's going to double back and get the LG. Now, he's in a position to potentially try and make something happen. The totem's on cooldown, so he's got to wait 10 seconds, make that less. Now he's near the hourglasses, of course. But fundamentally, you know, it's all about that piercing sight early on. You can see here, Av3k's used it, thanks to the cooldown being there, so he's going to have that immediate information. Looks like we're likely to trade out Heavy and Mega. Actually, no, never mind. There was a delay put on there, so he's able to get to both of them. And the railgun trade back and forth. Nice, good stuff there. And actually a really good play from Av3k. The piercing sight giving him the information. He knows he's got the stack to work with, and because of the split between the items, he had time to make a play there and get both.
Yeah, and of course Xron spawned towards the bottom, towards Heavy, so he might not have been as aware of that split. Showed up to a Mega a little early. Av3k, of course, knowing that he left a 10-second delay on that item, gave him all the time in the world to get from the Heavy all the way up to the Mega and set up nicely for that beautiful flyby rail. Another nice shot right here. Mega up is in 1 second, but Xron will be able to take it, but he pays for it quite dearly. That's all of his stack gone already, but Av3k not looking all that healthy himself.
Xron was looking to put just a little bit of pressure there on Av3k. Danger was he had no armor. Speaking of no armor, even after this heavy spawns, Av3k with only 17 HP. Watch out! Oh, yep. You know, you were just talking about it's not so easy without our God mode vision to see the totems in play. The trap's going to get sprung there from Xron. That one totem. It wasn't just the damage, it was the information. Xron knew exactly where he was. Unfortunately, missing that spawn rail could have been quite beneficial. Av3k didn't really have much weapons there to fight back, so any damage would have been better than nothing.
Yep.
He's going to try and get the Mega. Unfortunately, Xron missing his mark with quite a lot of damage. This fight's not going to be in his favor. With that one missed rocket, there was potential there for Xron to perhaps survive. But can he refrag? Av3k's very weak indeed.
No. Such an awkward fight there. Both of them just kind of standing next to each other, but then that one rocket seals the deal. And Xron, as you can tell, very clever placements of the totem. He's got one just hidden right around the corner there, but another towards the staircase. Pretty well positioned. Av3k has got a good idea of where Xron is at, using the sound to know where his opponent is at. I think that could have been a kill shot, actually, if that one connected. Didn't see it clearly, but Xron definitely stepping up the aim, landing a lot of good shots right now.
But now he's looking to lay on somewhat of a chokehold, right? He knows he's hit some important rails, Av3k. We're quite a while away until Mega spawns, and again, the totems. Av3k learned his lesson from last time. He's going to check that corner, absolutely. But the danger is, yeah, still no armor. And that's something that he always has to address, especially if you like Xron. And when he's on, he's hitting his rails. They are impressive. You know, we've mentioned sometimes he doesn't have the most confidence. Doesn't seem to be struggling with it as much today. That was a really nice kind of drive-by rail. But it was enough for Av3k to kind of get in and out, take that Mega. We can hit the piercing sight, did just get used as well. Thing is, Xron has loads of stack and plenty of time to work with. You know, the clock's not going to be a huge factor here just yet.
Yeah, also good that Xron managed to pick up the rockets because that was holding him back a fair bit. LG is superb. Xron definitely up there among the top aimers when he has to perform. He doesn't always reach his apex of skill, but every so often you see those blurbs of brilliance and of near perfect aim, and Xron hopefully will be able to come through with some of that today.
Av3k's piercing sight's going to be on cooldown, so he's not going to quite have that just yet. Looking like Xron's on the warpath here. Av3k turning around, I think he was a little bit aware that he was being chased all the same, but Xron, you know, if you're confident in your stack, you can still press the advantage. Not much of a divide in between the Mega and Heavy at the moment. We'll see if that's going to change soon as a fight is going to break out near Heavy. A wonderful rocket, and Av3k knocked up. The LG should be enough to finish, and even if Av3k went down, he's done sufficient damage to Xron. Depending on his spawn, we'll see if he's able to kind of recover on this, but Xron very weak indeed. Plenty of health nearby though, and thanks to the totems. Who was weak? What are you talking about? I didn't see nothing.
Yeah, and that's what we were talking about at the start. Xron has his 3 totems up, and that means that he essentially has got a mega health in his pocket. Every single time he walks over one of his totems, he gets a huge health boost that can take him all the way up to 175 points of health, and that's what allowed him to regain control even after being in a bad situation after getting that frag.
I mean, it's such a strength of wonderful rail. Who needs piercing sight when you got rails like that? Oh, never mind. It was enough though to put his stack entirely behind and actually lose the frag. One messed up rocket jump not only allowed Av3k to run in and take the Mega, but all of that work that Xron did to build his stack up, get his weapons together, that was his fight. It's just a complete fumbled rocket jump caused everything to fall to pieces. And now he has to kind of, you know, lay those foundations all over again. Thankfully, a bunch of his totems are still active. Problem is, that's an uncomfortable death to take, because now it's 3-2.
Luckily for Xron, it happened at a pretty opportune time. Didn't hurt him all that much in terms of item rotations, because he managed to get the Heavy off the spawn. Right now we're getting a bit of a confrontation. Xron landing most of the rails. Av3k, is he gonna walk into the totem? He did, but it didn't kill him.
The combo piece with the rockets. It is going to get rid of the totem though, so I guess, you know, blessing in disguise perhaps. Av3k, well, he ran into the totem and it's gone, but I'm not sure how much that's really going to help him now. 5-minute warning is long surpassed. Xron taking the lead and keeping it so far. But that is the danger. Xron, he's so good at just placing his totems in inconsistent locations. Wonderful rail. And the restack up there with the totems. I was going to say before the fight actually near Rocket, it's such a strength of Galena. You know, normally when you frag someone and you know they're weak, absolutely fantastic shot. Totem's going to go down, but who cares? Misses that rail, actually. It's going to be somewhat of an avenue for Av3k to at least escape if he wants to. Xron has to get some armor, desperately.
That was excellent use of piercing sight by Av3k right there. He knew he was in a bad spot. He popped the ability just so that he could have an easier time hitting Xron, and that's exactly what allowed him to hit those rails and propel Xron backwards, keeping him out of the room so he can take Heavy, and there we go. Av3k starting to turn things around. There's still 3.5 minutes left on the clock for just 2 frags. This is entirely possible. Rail damage being exchanged by both players. Av3k, he is still gonna push in. Xron so low, but so is he.
If he can undo the damage of the Heavy just there, that would have been absolutely fantastic. Unfortunately, he didn't quite get the shot. Now, you can understand Av3k kind of going in for that. He's known for being quite an aggressive player, and that was, by all accounts, an aggressive play. But if it worked out, you know, you've just been able to undo the damage of the Heavy that was taken and get yourself a frag. You know, one frag separates you. Would have been quite beneficial, but now he's got to be very careful, because now it's actually Xron's going to be the aggressive one, trying to push him away from Heavy, and nowhere to run, nowhere to hide, especially when there's a rail with that. Too far away. Xron running away with the lead really at this point. 6-3 with this much left on the clock. There's not a lot of this map left to go.
No, not at all. Gonna see another confrontation. Av3k does manage to get the rocket, but he's hurting for other weapons. Luckily, he's got a good position to use the weapon. And Xron taking a bit of a beating. 4 points of health. We've seen a lot of close fights this map so far. Very often, it ends with 1 of 2 players surviving with less than 30 points of health. Oh no, Av3k caught out once again. Xron doesn't have the armor though. Av3k, despite being at a weapon disadvantage, he had the better stack. And here we go again, the piercing side rail helping the Polish player out a lot. The Prince starting to land his shots too, but he's got to step it up.
And it was also the choice for Av3k to double back. Can he get the frag? Yes, he can. It was the play to fresh you off the spawn. He only had the super shotgun, right? Turning around, yes, he had more stack, but going in for the fight would have been an absolute suicide mission. Using the piercing sight to get the knowledge, doubling back, getting the rail first, and it was the rail that allowed him to get the frag, keeping all the information he had on Xron prior. And now, actually, there's a real potential for this to bring him straight back into the fight. Has to watch out for these totems, though. Can't concede a single inch of HP. And at this point, Xron might be starting to play this hyper-defensive game if he can. He has to run away for, under 2 minutes at this point. Av3k, unfortunately, can't quite get the height either. And now, Xron, those defensive rockets are going to be crazy real, giving himself an angle where it's going to be kind of hard for him to chase down, even with this piercing sight. Now, Av3k's the one ultimately, he's going to have to make a play here. He's going to have to make chase.
Yep. Xron will have heard the piercing sight being popped. He knows, of course, that his opponent can see him through the wall. And now we're entering the territory of the final minute. Av3k still thinking he's got the time to go for this heavy. But now he's really got to put the pedal to the metal. 3 frags in 60 seconds, tall order.
Takes the extra time to collect the hourglasses too, because he really needs this piercing sight. Has seemingly completely lost track of where Xron is though, which is why the piercing sight is going to come into fact. We have 1 minute left. He knows that he's down here, but again, Xron very carefully picking his positions where he can easily retreat. Av3k's one has to chase. If he's got those defensive shots in the way here, straight through the jump pad, Av3k, he has to understand he's going to concede a lot of damage making chase, but he has no choice. Goes up for the rocket, gets a wrong read on where Xron's going to try and escape. That one missed rocket might be everything. Super shotgun's going to finally do it. The problem is, that frag took a couple of extra seconds longer than it should have just because of that one missed read on a rocket.
And Av3k also, after using the sight, knows that Xron is completely down and ready to play this hyper-defensively. Out comes the Tribolt. And I think that might just be sealing the deal. Even Av3k's signature aggression won't be able to bring back that many frags with just 10 seconds to go. Mathematical impossibility. Can he find himself one more point at the end here? Rocket's kind of fumbling, and he's gonna end up suiciding up against
He
Xron.
had to give it a go, didn't he?
He had to.
Merry Christmas.
Yeah.
But I mean, fundamentally, at the end of that play, it was like a light switch. Xron immediately recognized within kind of the 2 minute mark, hey, look, I've got a really substantial lead here. I've got decent positioning, and he very carefully picked his locations. I really liked where Xron chose to kind of position himself by the end, because it's those awkward angles, right, where the first position was near Rocket, near the teleporter, where even with piercing sight, we knew that Av3k could see him there. But even with that, if someone is kind of setting up shop near those teleporters, you have to go in eventually.
Of course.
But whichever direction you choose to chase, they can just go the other way. And then the second choice was down near Heavy, where at that point, Av3k had actually completely lost sight of where Xron was. He'd gone towards Teleport and realized he wasn't there. Had to use the piercing sight. Thankfully, collected the hourglasses, so he had it ready to go. But Xron at the last minute just being as irritating to catch as possible, and it worked out. Combined with excellent defensive shots. It was the rockets, and then it was the rails that even though Av3k was making chase, he was getting hit by so many rails trying to do it that it didn't even remotely work anyway.
I mean, I think if we were to summarize that map, Xron didn't have an easy start, right? He was behind, actually 2 frags behind, that ended up suiciding, trying to get back into it. But then once he managed to get control, he hung on to it really solidly too. And every single time that Av3k made an appearance and tried to do damage, Xron basically just did the exact same thing. And every single time that Av3k did manage to get a frag, I mean, Xron managed to do so much damage to him that the Polish player was just completely unable to set up shop and get a really good rotation of his own going.
Yeah, getting that totem detonation on the replay, it's really important, because whenever you watch Xron play Galena, you know that he's not going to have the most easy to detect totems out there. It's one thing that makes him so exciting to watch whenever he uses this champion. He has so many different locations he can place them that become kind of irritating. The more inconsistent they are, the more you kind of worry about your own movement. Yeah. He never has to really worry about having to restack, because as I tried to say earlier on, around this fight actually, when the rocket jump didn't quite work out, there could have been, potentially disaster here for Xron, but he was able to get back up on the horse. She's a champion that, as long as she's got access to a couple of small health bubbles and a totem's ready to go, even if you barely scrape a fight as Galena, you have all the tools you need to restack. So they can't just respawn and frag you. You have to give it so much more respect.
And I think that the amount of times that Av3k got hit by the totems also just speaks volumes about Xron's placement, because very often you see people use Galena and they don't get a single point of damage of it because they just use it to hide them away from where an opponent would nowhere go, or to just heal themselves up in the midst of battle. But Xron just really tries to sneakily place them around corners, down to the side of a staircase, so that an opponent will eventually walk into one. And I think he got 2 or 3 hits with the totem, which is a lot more than you'd see in your average game. So very clever placement indeed.
And right here, you know, this was the moment Xron, it was long after the moment, in fact, where he decided to start being crazy defensive, and it was, you know, changing his locations, where he was going to set up shop. Some of his locations, as he was Galena, he had the benefit of not only being hard to detect, and if you go in one way, he can essentially, you know, you zig, he zags, but you've got the benefit of the totem to place as well to heal you up for that next play. Every time Av3k's trying to make chase, he's running past him, so I haven't got time for you anymore, I've got to get this guy. But that's a great start there for Xron. I believe Blood Run should be next. We're going to see if this one's going to turn out better, but looking like a really good form of Xron so far. Av3k, you know, by no means did he play bad, but Xron just, he hit the shots he had to hit. Wonderful start there from Av3k, using the Dire Orb just to reposition, making that heavy a little bit less of a death trap than it normally is.
Oh yeah, it's such a difficult item to get away with cleanly, because you're just essentially perched up on that tiny little ledge right there. If you try to jump away or even drop down, your opponent's waiting below with the LG, and that's gonna hurt so much, especially at this level of aim. Nice trap from Av3k, does quite a bit of damage to Xron. Xron just staying around, steals the Mega, but Av3k's LG is supreme, and Xron will just drop instantly.
Especially against Nyx as well. You know, it cannot ever be understated that she is one of the trickier champions to hit with the rail. You know, those lights are kind of difficult to rail in LG on the best of days for most of us, but in Quake Pro League, I guess maybe it's not so bad, but in this situation, it was a great, started off as a great trap. Xron, kind of almost like having to use the Ghost Walk, because he was going to die otherwise. You know, there's no way he could prevent it. LG coming through again, looking to get the rail, exit rail. Who's going to get the next weapon drawn? Going to be Av3k, getting a 2-0.
I mean, you cannot be as aggressive as Av3k is in a game like Quake without having the aim to back it up. You need to be able to consistently win those one-on-one fights, and that's exactly what Av3k is doing right now. Shooting a rocket around to damage himself so he can pick up the small armor. And I also feel like that second rocket was maybe to also scare away Xron. If Xron was trying to get close to him, or maybe just get the exit damage off the Ghost Walk. But Av3k looking really solidly right now, and he's got a pretty good rotation going on too, because he can use the orb, if need be, to instantly make his way up to heavy.
Well, the idea was to give himself a little bit of extra speed, but doesn't quite get it. Not that it matters, because Xron is nowhere to be seen. Right now, you know, being 2-0 down this early on Blood Run, that can be quite troublesome, because almost immediately, you know, if you're the one that's in control, you hold sway over most of the map, and you can kind of easily detect where the opponent's going to be running around or running away. You know, right now, Av3k, he's being kind of hard to detect here, but this is kind of what happens in Blood Run. When you get the lead, you're the one that's kind of able to immediately dictate how slow Blood Run has to be played.
Yeah. And also, of course, the natural stack difference between a light and a medium champion, Nyx versus Ranger, is also coming into play now. Av3k is just going to ignore the heavy. Nope, still just backs up. I like the push, though. Expecting Xron to maybe peek back when he tried to rocket jump for heavy, so instead he just rocket jumped straight at Xron, expecting or hoping that Xron would make the mistake to peek, and then he would do so much damage to his opponent.
Yeah, there were 2 plays there. You know, the first play was the fake rocket jump into the tri-bolt. I think the first one was to try and bait Xron around the corner for some cheeky tri-bolt damage. And the second one, obviously, the fake rocket jumping towards, maybe thinking that he was going to try and go towards the heavy and get a point-blank rocket. This is Ranger we're talking about, right? He hasn't got to worry about splash damage. His passive definitely takes care of that, but ultimately, it didn't lead to much damage, but he still got the lead. You're 3 minutes in, the 2-0 remains. Mega is going to be the next objective. There is a lovely divide in between the 2 major items, so if Av3k plays his cards right, he can definitely get them. Oh, Xron going for the forbidden fruit and eating a rail for his troubles. Ghost Walk's going to get popped. Wonderful rocket there from Xron. The danger is he's very, very weak indeed, and the second you're out of control on this map, you have to rely on those small pickups. And Av3k being aggressive again, actually, really trying to shut down. If you're going to try and stop me from taking this heavy, I'm going to make you regret it. But it looks like Xron right now showing a lot of respect.
Av3k definitely has the right strategy for Blood Run right now, because something you sometimes tend to see is that people, once they get in control, they focus too much on just the items alone, and by doing so, they give their opponent the freedom to move around the map, restack, get the weapons they need, and then mount a comeback. But Av3k seems to be hell-bent on not letting that happen, and he's just applying consistent pressure and trying to chase down Xron any opportunity he really has. So he's definitely trying to keep and cull his stack right now.
Yeah, I needed to get some rockets back too, kind of nicely doubling up, running the circuit between cooldowns for the heavy. In that situation, not only was he able to get the rocket, but he was able to shut down the light armor. And it, in turn, kind of forces Xron to remain in this side of the map, which allows Av3k to just have all the information he needs, really. Looking like he might be a little bit aggressive here. Xron choosing to try and go for a change of pace. Does get a little bit of decent damage. Couple of seconds away from heavy. Is Xron going to fight for it? No, he's going to concede it again. He has got time to play with, but the longer he stays on that half of the map, not really able to achieve much, the more Av3k is going to be able to just shut down the rest of it.
And he's doing an excellent job at that. He keeps doing a little bit of self-damage just so that he's able to deny those small armors to Xron and completely drain the map of all resources so that his opponent, the Nyx, has very little to work with. And now he's just trying to force out, bait out the Ghost Hawk, which Xron did use a little while ago. And now here we go. He probably has a pretty good idea that the Ghost Hawk isn't up yet, but it's about to be. So he's got to wait a little longer before he can go in for another frag. But Av3k is playing this control game to perfection right now.
Absolutely just choke holding Xron into that one corner of the map. I'm pretty sure for like 4.5 minutes, if we've looked at this X-ray, Xron has been in, you know, the light armor area where the power-up normally spawns in other game modes.
Yep.
And right now, actually, looking to make somewhat of a play. Xron maybe getting tired of being bullied around a little bit, trying to get some of that rocket damage if Av3k wants to run around and take the heavy. But again, gonna absolutely concede it. But once more, Av3k choosing to be aggressive first, try and get any damage just in case Xron is there. Av3k already has a bigger stack. Now, if he takes a fight before heavy spawns, hang on a minute. Xron looking for a slightly different angle, gets a little bit of damage, but not enough really to write home about. Not to stop the denial. Does he double back? Oh, the time it took him to double back at least eats a rail, but the question's always going to be, is that enough? There's a chance to open up here. Xron.
Yeah.
Re-emerging there with the Ghost Walk. Going to get some rockets out of this. Now the heavy's about to spawn. Can he shut it down?
He
Looks
can.
like he's been able to finally break the cycle. It took a good 5 minutes, but he's finally done it.
Really clever play from Xron, knowing exactly when the items were going to spawn, then setting up a tribal, doing a good amount of damage on Av3k when he went for Mega, and by giving up essentially positioning to go take the health, Av3k allowed Xron to get himself nicely set up, waiting and stealing the heavy out from underneath Av3k's nose and then dealing enough damage to take him right back down. Xron, though, still has got one frag to make up. He definitely isn't in the lead or even tied just yet.
And he has to be careful every single time, even with that Ghost Walk in hand. Every time he wants to go for that heavy, it's damage he has to, you know, he knows he has to concede damage here. The question is, can he give better than he gets? Oh, perforation! We were just saying, can he give better? And I guess he did. Well done, Xron. It's now going to be 2-2. Av3k, oh, wonderful dire orb towards the Mega, though. Looking for the rail, misses the shot. And after what should have been a wonderful change of momentum, risks losing a frag here and making it 3-2, giving Av3k the lead again. They are going to disengage, though. Honestly, both players able to survive that. It's good either way. And Xron, can he make this count? That missed rail, very important opportunity for Xron.
That was such an aggressive and risky confrontation for both of these players to take, because with just 3 minutes left on the clock on a map as defensive as Blood Run, whoever player or whichever would have died right there was in such a bad spot. Av3k, 1 point of health. Av3k, does he know how low Xron is? Surely he does, but he just doesn't have the stack himself to push in right now, because he knows one rail would have finished him off if he would have pushed in that situation.
That was a scary position for Av3k. The tactical rocket jump just to get to the Mega first. You know, he knows he's at risk of giving up a rail angle, being just that out in the open. Going in for the rail, which is gonna miss. Oh, that's unfortunate there for Xron. He's been hitting so many good shots this time. It's a shame how when he finally misses a shot, it's one that really kind of gives him a frag up.
What a sick shot that was. Av3k must have seen like a pixel of the tip of Xron's head right there, and he lined that up perfectly. Right now, Av3k, a man known for his aggression, are we going to see him deviate from that standard playstyle of his and actually switch to a more defensive way of approaching this? Right now, Xron just getting lifted up in the air, but it's got the Ghost Walk, his get out of jail free card, he pops it, and Av3k escapes from the clutches of death right there.
Every time you see a rail just about to come through and you know it's going to be a kill shot, you clench a specific kind of way, don't you? A rocket's going to come through. 2 rockets, in fact. However, Av3k still being out of armor means he is absolutely railable. Thanks to the 2 health bubbles, he's not going to be as much. There's no armor nearby, though. The fact of the matter is he has the lead. He has the frag to work with. And this is Blood Run. You know, we've seen it go for one frag before, but that rail might be the skeleton key for Xron to be as aggressive as he wants. Misses the rail again. Oh, misses 2 rails. That one might have been a why not shot, but fact of the matter is it missed, and it's allowing Av3k to survive longer. As long as Av3k can survive on this one frag, hang on a minute, the aggressive Ghost Walk has been used. The trap comes through Xron, making chase, making it 3-3, and he has a wonderful stack and plenty of weaponry to work with. All the tools he could need. He has the rocket launcher spawn. Xron can just avoid these rockets. There's not much he can run past on the way. There's still only going to be a rocket here. As long as Xron can navigate the minefield, which he might be able to. Doesn't quite come through. Can he hit the rail?
Oh!
Yes, he can! Xron, what a shot! That might have been the game winner if he can get in and out here.
He doesn't have Ghost Walk though. He doesn't have Ghost Walk. If Av3k can find him, there's 10 seconds left on the clock. He might be able to still do something. But I don't know how possible it is. That's one rail. Xron plays the teleporter to perfection, keeping himself an avenue of escape. And that is Xron taking the first 2 maps already. Things are not exactly looking good for Av3k.
I mean, ultimately, Xron, he's been talking about how he's been actively grinding the game more. He's been practicing a lot more intensely than he normally did.
Yep.
There's been a lot of times throughout Quake Pro League where we've been watching Xron's games and chatting about them and going over replays, and it's a common theme would be that one final shot or maybe a problem with his accuracy, and it's often his rail. You know, his rail is, we always say that sometimes he's not very confident, and his rail was the biggest thing that really suffers in that. That has not been the case today. In fact, it was an incredibly clutch rail that allowed him to win this map. This looks like the Xron that everyone kind of fondly remembers when he plays well, right? When he has good success in tournament. You know, Av3k, he had so many opportunities to steal that back, and he took them. It's just, I mean, half of this map, he was the one fully in control. Xron, the fact that he was able to break, you know, that one little gap in the armor and run away with it the way he did, it was very impressive, and it takes a lot of composure to even be able to start that kind of comeback.
Yeah, that's where it all went wrong for Av3k in that particular scene. I don't think he should have contested. And it should have just let Xron take control, but Av3k just was hell-bent on not giving up control. Look at that rail, beautiful. But yeah, Av3k realized that he was losing control, but he didn't just want to give it fully to Xron, so he stuck around and he took that fight for the heavy. And that's what ended up killing him and set, well, a downward spiral.
And that was a really nice final fight there from Xron, understanding that he's just spawned, he's near rocket launcher, that's the only weapon he's going to have access to, so the moment he gets the shot on Av3k, even after he takes the heavy, he's like, I don't care. You know, you need to have confidence in your own ability to just navigate the rockets that come through, because even one of those connecting when you're a Nyx is like, you know, you're dead. So you need to have a lot of, I think, faith in your own ability to dodge them. And that was it. He just went nice and aggressive, dodged the rockets as best he could, hit that final clutch rail at the end, and that's it. 2-0 for Xron, going on to the final map now. And to kind of, you know, rewind a little bit and come back to remind everyone they're very, very close on the leaderboard. So a 3-0 either way is great news for the player that gets the 3-0, not so good news for the player that gets 3-0'd.
Yeah, absolutely not. Whoever wins this, I mean, even at this point, it's already difficult for Av3k, right? Because he essentially had to give up 8 points to Xron already, and now it's so crucial that Av3k stops Xron from getting 16 over his 0, because that could be absolutely disastrous this close to the end of Stage 2. All eyes, I think, are on Av3k. The final map, Vale of Nath. Can he turn things around? That's a lot of have funs I see coming out of Xron. He's clearly having a good time. Av3k perhaps a little less so.
That's what I love watching about Xron play Quake, is that, you know, for as long as Quake Champions has been a thing, Xron has been one of those players that's kind of just actively really, excuse me, enjoyed, enough time to press my cough button, enjoyed playing Quake Champions. If there's a new mode, he's playing it. If there's a community tournament for some new game mode, he's always in it. He's, you know, more often than not, placing nice and highly in it. It's just fundamentally, he just loves to grind. He loves to grind new champions, new maps, whatever it is, because you can tell that he just has fun doing that. And it's, I don't know, quite wholesome to see, I suppose, for lack of a better term. But right now, he's definitely going to be feeding himself with 2 maps and some good rockets. Make that 1 more. Av3k is going to fall again. Xron with the 1 frag lead, not even 1 minute in. Great start for him. We'll see if he can keep this momentum rolling, Flea.
Yeah, pretty significant delay between the 2 major items. That's around 15 seconds, perfectly split down the middle. Av3k's got to be careful right here that he doesn't give up too much to Xron, but oh, that 1 rocket just didn't do any damage whatsoever. I think it was a little too far from the wall that Xron had positioned himself in midair. And so he managed to just fly by, and Av3k, well, managed to take a 1-1 tie again.
Oh,
and
the perfect rocket as well, waiting for him to drop and doing absolute max damage. The whole thing started from a disgustingly good vertical rail at the same time. Looks like the pressure's not really going to get to Av3k. Not that it often does. You know, Av3k is legendary for a reason, right? Normally these players, they don't get super swayed by the pressure that comes from these kind of situations. Av3k with a 3-1, looking nice and comfortable. However, Xron, a nice little read, understanding that he's near heavy. He's likely going to take it and set up for a free rail.
Av3k right now scrounging for any armor he can find. Gonna get himself the railgun. He has the unholy trinity of weapons that are so important in Quake. He's got a pretty nice lead, 2 frags ahead on a map like Vale. Not a bad way to kick things off, but he is lacking resources, and Xron has plenty of those. He can just keep pushing even after taking a direct, and Av3k will take himself down with that final rocket.
The intention to double back and set up those rockets, they did do fantastic damage. You know, Av3k, I think, potentially understood I'm likely to go down here, so maybe I can just score as much damage as I can. Maybe if he just straight up doesn't expect it, I can even get a frag, you know, if I play my cards right. But this damage over time, it's not going to be about the damage that's taking here for Av3k, it's just information for Xron. Similar to Sorlag's Acid, as long as damage is being dealt, you can see those numbers on the screen anywhere. And now, oh, that rail on the backside. Opportunity for Xron to get back in this. Beats him to the heavy. Hasn't got a lot of HP, though, to work with. He is going to somewhat adjust that now there. The health bubble's good to go, but it looks like Xron's going to be aggressive again. Point blank with the LG, and wonderful swap to the machine gun. No need to mess around with anything more damaging when he's that weak, and Av3k, fresh off the spawn, gets absolutely deleted. Not much he could do there. The second to dedicate to that direction, it was over.
Yeah, Xron forced that spawn beautifully. And that one death, I mean, Av3k was just outgunned. He didn't have any LG ammo left. He had like 5 cells, so he knew he couldn't just go for that fight. And all he could do was try and shoot those very difficult and tricky rockets downrange. And Xron, of course, easily able to dodge all of them, while put out a tremendous amount of damage himself. And that is what allowed Xron to put himself back in control, and even with a 1-point lead by now.
Xron, it's a pretty famous angle, kind of near rail. You get a really good shot towards heavy, and Xron understood that. He didn't want to just give up a free rail unnecessarily, so the play was, you know, be nice and aggressive, push Av3k away from it. Maybe I can get kind of couple of bonus shots along the way, then take heavy, and then bam, you know, I'm in a much better position. As you can see here, the stack is immense in the favor of Xron, and there's a chunky delay in between the items. Av3k didn't really want to push too hard into it. They're going to concede the rail and take a heavy. That's always going to be worth it, as Xron has a stack this big. Flame Strike's ready too, so Av3k getting caught round a corner is going to be disastrous news. And he has to respect it, even with the dual wheel. Looks like the trap might get sprung here. No immediate pop of the Flame Strike. Doesn't need it. He's just going to chase through. Wonderful rocket there from Av3k. And that was, I suppose, best case scenario in terms of damage, but Xron should have no issues restacking back up. I'm even surprised Av3k did that much damage.
Yeah, he just landed some sick rockets from a very poor position, and that does open up the heavy to him. Xron a little too uncertain about his stack. Doesn't feel secure enough to push out for that heavy armor as well. Tries to just content himself with the Mega and a few health bubbles around it. But that did give Av3k the opportunity to steal one of the majors. I don't think he's got the exact timing on Mega, but he's got a pretty good idea of when the item is about to spawn, which is in around 2 seconds. Flame Strike coming out, but of course the Mega is gonna heal that straight back up. And Xron, can he even go for heavy? It just spawned! He misreads Av3k's position. The rockets are sublime!
Wow. Absolutely fantastic rockets in that situation. The dual-wheeled LGs come through. He tries to be as aggressive as he can, and Xron shutting it down before it can even start.
That was unfortunate timing for Av3k. If Xron had jumped a second sooner, he would have had that angle. If Xron had jumped a second later, he would have had the angle, but just by going out of bounds pad, he obscured his sight for just a moment. And it allowed the Ukrainian player to get the item, but here we go. Av3k back with a vengeance. 1 frag of a deficit.
Yeah, this is a very important 4 minutes that's coming up. Av3k, he's technically losing, but only by 1 frag. And remember, he really, really needs to get this map win to just prevent Xron from just ascending. Yeah, we haven't got many of these weeklies left, and I'm going to keep saying that throughout the course of the night. These are some very important matches, especially with them being so close on the leaderboards. Xron going in for the Flame Strike, can't quite hit its mark and go as far as it needs to, though. Xron, as weak as he is, has nowhere to run and nowhere to hide. Who even cares about that in that situation? Oh, bad spawn for Xron, an easy pickup from Av3k.
And
Just like
that is Av3k aggression. Absolutely. Av3k just left up not one, but two major item opportunities that he could have just picked up Mega, but instead he went for damage. He went for the frag, and he made it work both times. And that is exactly why he coined the term Av3k aggression way back in the day.
And he's in a great situation now. Much bigger stack than Ron. Looking to make it one extra frag as he's knocked up. The nail gun's only going to do so much with a stack that big. Even fresh off the spawn, Av3k, he can take this fight again if he wants to. Looks like he's going to do it, and that missed rail's just going to be the opening for that. And then some. Looking right now, though, that Av3k might be running away with this. There's always a potential for Ron to come back, but he is running out of time.
Av3k's aim, though, superb LG today, and that's always been a weapon that Av3k's been good at. We know him for it. Right now, 4 points in the lead. It's gonna get a lot of information, not so much damage from that one rocket, the stray rocket, just to keep Xron away from pushing in. And Av3k right now, I think he knows. 3 minutes left. Still, on a map like Vale, it's probably a bit too risky to go full defensively right now. And we saw him not go full defensively on Blood Run. Perfect LG with the dual wield, even though Xron had the better positioning, did the opening damage. That's still gonna go to our Prince.
Yeah, I mean, that was the lesser of two evils there. Take the rocket jump damage to make sure we don't get railed and absolutely killed. Oh no, the click that we all hate to hear. Out of ammo on the railgun. And yeah, if Xron's able to secure a frag now, there is always a potential that, look, if he can just get a good sequence of items, gonna be harder now he's dead. Granted, here comes the super shotgun round the corner. If he got the frag right there and he had the means to restack back up, potentially not over. This is a tiny map. If you get good spawns, it can work out. Problem is now 6 frags to tie things up. Less than 2 minutes to go. I mean, Av3k just has to play his cards right now, and he should be fine. But here comes a rail from Xron. That's going to be one. He has to keep this momentum going hard and fast. There's not a lot of time to take your foot off the gas. Av3k fresh off the spawn. Potential here. Gets the rail, though, and the perfect shot. If he missed that, potentially spells disaster. But he didn't. The clutch shot when it counted.
And by now, I don't know, Xron needs nothing less of a miracle, and he's gonna start it off
Top
with an
speed.
excellent frag too. Yep, here we go.
No time for anything else, Fleet. Let's go.
Heavy is up. He's still gonna chase after it. Try to maybe cut off Av3k for Mega, but Av3k, I think, is starting to switch to a defensive playstyle. He could have gone up through a teleporter, made a move on the Mega, but instead he decided to just stay clear, buy himself all the time that he can.
All right, the Instant Demus is going to connect. Is it going to be enough? All right, there's a rocket. I mean, look, I'm never going to say never. We have just over 1 minute left. Gets another spawn. The problem is he's weak, and that's going to be a running theme on a small map. Yes, you have the potential to catch people off spawn, but I mean, if you're not able to restack up, then they're just going to refrag you, especially if they spawn near an item that's going to happily re-pick that up. Xron gets another frag. The danger is if they consistently trade it, he's no better off than when he started. Catches the spawn again. Av3k gets caught. All right, here we go. Has to get it quickly. No! Misses the rail! That is a bit of a heartbreaker.
I feel like that small delay before Xron did anything else shows maybe a little bit of defeat, but absolutely not necessary just yet.
Let's go. Let's.
Yeah, you can force
Optimistic.
spawns on this map pretty nicely.
But Av3k, he's
Xron
just
doesn't
standing
know.
still. He's standing still, and that's the play. He has no idea where he is, Flea. Oh no. Av3k with the perfect time. Av3k aggression? How about Av3k stand still and not move an inch?
This is the cooler dodge to the maximum. The best dodge is not to move at all. He will surrender another frag, but Xron leaves it at that. He knows the time's run out, and Av3k, I think the silver lining of this match definitely is that he managed to win the final map, because otherwise 16 points going towards Xron when it's this close. Yeah, now Av3k managed to keep it to just 4 points.
I mean, anything you can do to stop the bleeding is going to be better than nothing, especially at this late point. But yeah, that final play at the very end where it's, okay, so there's about 3 frags left there to try and avoid conceding. Just stand still. Let's just not move at all. And it was, you know, it's quite great seeing plays like that when we have the X-ray, because we can literally see the opponent lost, just unable to see what's going on. And, it, you know, the small amount of seconds that were wasted in that situation was just enough wasted time to make sure that that little triple momentum of frags, it can't even begin to happen.
I mean, you don't make any noise when you don't move at all, so Av3k trying to play the quiet game, the stealthy game, and Xron was close to catching him, but instead went to railgun instead.
It's so easy on some maps to kind of, assume that you've reached that point of no return where there's too much of a divide, but considering Xron was making chase so quickly, so regularly, and sometimes was able to kind of build that snowball effect, it was kind of hard to count out until the last second, which is why I think I super appreciate that final play from Av3k even more, to just kind of dig his heels in and just stop making noise, period. Xron, he was right near him. When he actually stopped moving, Xron was nearby. You could just tell that Xron was listening out. He was really trying to just dedicate to those popular locations, stick to one of them if he's there, cool. And that was just the one time he just so happened to lose track of it. And that was the moment the map was over.
Yep.
But they exchanged so many frags on this map. And, it's why Vale can sometimes be quite a fun map to watch. It can just be erratic, explosive, unpredictable. How many of these, situations where Av3k got caught off the spawn, but there were a couple of instances where he was LG'd on the rail and did a complete 180 and got the frag himself. Like, they are not easy shots to land, especially when your movement's being dictated by somebody else's LG.
And I mean, I just want to again point out how insane Av3k's LG aim can sometimes be, and we saw a lot of it on this map as well. There's a moment, I don't think it's going to be in the replay because it happened a little bit before a frag, but Xron just shows his face over at Mega, peeking over the ledge, and Av3k just deletes his stack before he can even walk away with that LG. Perfect aim a lot of the times, but unfortunately it just wasn't enough in the overall scheme of things. He did manage to take home this final map, of course, but Xron will be the victor 2-1.
It's going to be a victory, which at the very least is something Xron can be happy with. I know at this stage everyone's going to be happier if they can grab one of those 3-0s, especially this late on. But at the end of the day, if you secure a win, I mean, how can you be mad? It's a start to try and move on. Fundamentally, these two players, as talented as they are, we've seen some fantastic maps from them today. Their goal is going to be, I want to avoid relegation. It's not going to be about seeding or placement within the Stage 2 finals. It is, I want to avoid even risking being eliminated from Pro League.
And that's what it's all about for a lot of players, not just in Europe, but also in the American scene of things, because I don't know if you've taken a look at what we've recently seen come out of the Challengers League, but man, there's some good contenders trying to get into the Pro League. And for those of you who don't know, basically there's a Challengers League going on that concluded just yesterday, where everyone who is not in the Pro League can essentially sign up and play up against each other every single week in a weekly tournament. And now I believe the final number of players that have managed to qualify, the 16 of them I believe, are about to go head to head in a final day of Challenger finals to determine which two get to go to the Quake 1 LAN.
And the Challenger League, it doesn't leave out players that were relegated previously, So we are seeing players like Garpy re-emerge and play once again, on top of other talented players that are looking to kind of take those lower ranks. And lower ranks, unfortunately, is where kind of Xron and Av3k are kind of residing at the moment. That said, though, a 2-1 victory is excellent for Xron. I know he would have been happier with the 3-0, but if you're in Av3k's position after losing those first two maps, I mean, the fact that you got that final one is, you can't breathe easy. Don't get me wrong, but it's not, I've totally just got no points today.
Oh, yeah.
That one is going to cut quite deep if it was a 3-0. Unfortunately for Av3k, it wasn't. We'll consult the leaderboards afterwards and see what that means for him at the end of the day. Sorry, I've got one hell of a throg in my throat today. I'm trying so hard not to cough into the mic for everybody. Damn flu season. We're going to go for a short break and set up our next set of matches. This is Quake Pro League Stage number 2, week number 8. Don't go anywhere.